Types of interest groups. The first type of interest group that I'm going to cover are interest groups that are economic. Okay, that would be interest groups that organize based upon economic need or money. Basically, these are the types of interest groups who are fighting for their dough, their bread, their cheese, or their money. Okay, business, labor, and agricultural groups are very common because these are areas that are heavily regulated by the federal government. The government makes a lot of laws telling these kinds of groups what to do. So business, there's laws that they have to pay a minimum wage, that they have to provide safe working conditions for the employees, that they cannot pollute, that they are not allowed to put a product out there that will hurt customers. Labor, of course, there's laws about what businesses have to provide their workers for benefits and insurance and pay. In agriculture, farmers and agribusinesses also have to follow a lot of rules, like what pesticides can they use, how much can they grow, what can they grow, how much can they water. There's a bunch of rules that the government puts before these groups. So these groups join together, these groups, like all these businesses join together, and labor or workers join together, and agribusinesses join together so they can be a united front against the government, so they can make sure the government writes laws that benefit them. Agricultural groups represent the interest of agribusinesses, and agribusinesses are large companies that conduct farm business, like Smithfield Foods is an agribusiness. Monsanto, which has like the patents on most of the seeds, on most of the products that you eat. Monsanto is an agribusiness. And these agribusinesses have groups that represent their interest in Washington. So when lawmakers are making law about agriculture and farm-related business, they have a say. The National Grange was one of the first interest groups, and it's also an interest group that represents farmers. Business groups promote and protect business interest. So different types of businesses, like realtors, or I put an example of American automobile manufacturers like Ford, Chrysler, GM. They come together and join the American Automobile Manufacturers Group so they can make sure that in Washington, lawmakers aren't making laws that make it too difficult for Ford and GM and Chrysler to make money. Also, Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce, you'll see that mentioned in a lot of different places. There's an Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce, and the Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce organizes small businesses in Isle of Wight County and makes sure that their interests are protected by law. Labor unions. These are organizations of workers acting together to get better wages and benefits. Acting together, sorry, that was driving me nuts. So workers of a certain profession will come together as a group, and they'll join together in a fight for higher wages and better working conditions and better benefits. The largest labor union in the United States is the AFL-CIO. Their logo is right there. The American Federation of Labor, and the Congress of Industrial Organizations, which is actually a collection of a bunch of different labor unions put together. So they have like the pipe fitters labor union, and then the railroad workers labor union, and the pilots and flight attendants labor union. They all fall under the big umbrella of the AFL-CIO. And then you have professional groups. I'm actually a member of a professional group because my profession being teaching, I'm a member of the NEA, the National Education Association. And the reason I've joined that group is because they create a standard for my profession, which means if you want to be a teacher, the NEA makes sure that you meet a certain criteria and that you are a high quality teacher They actually give you training and advice on how to be a teacher too. They hold hearings, and they print journals. So I get a journal or a magazine from the NEA. Other professional organizations you've heard of before, the ABA is the American Bar Association, and that's for lawyers. So lawyers come together, and if you want to be a lawyer, you have to pass the standard of the bar. Okay, so the bar is a test that creates the standard for lawyers in America, and it's put out by the American Bar Association. And then the ADA is the American Dental Association. So if you want to be a dentist, you're a member of this group, and that group kind of puts forth standards for dentistry. Other interest groups, societal. These groups represent members of society. They represent people with similar concerns. Like there is a societal group for women, because women tend to have some concerns that men might not have, like equal pay for equal work, or um, uh, you know, single mothers, concerns of single mothers, or even concerns for things like family and medical leave when your children get sick. Ethnic groups join together. Like members of a particular ethnic group can organize, like the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It started out as a group of African Americans pushing for equality in the United States, and that would be a societal group. And the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, there's VFW posts throughout America, and they just join together as veterans and make sure that their interests are protected in the government. Public interest groups. They believe that if their interests are met, or they believe that the interest they want will benefit all of the public good, like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they believe that if they have it their way and there's no more drunk driving, everybody in the country will benefit, even if you aren't a member of that group. And Ralph Nader, who, if you remember from last week, we talked about Ralph Nader as a third-party candidate. Ralph Nader actually got his start in politics, or got his fame, by being a consumer advocate or a consumer rights fighter. He started public interest groups to make sure that businesses did what was right for their consumers and made products that were safe. Okay, so those are the different types of interest groups. Now let's talk about what interest groups do to try to shape government actions. So what do they do by organizing all these people together that have a similar interest? How do they try to influence lawmakers to write legislation or to make laws that benefit their group? Now, since interest groups don't run candidates that make government decisions, they try to influence the politicians. So they don't actually, like a political party will try to win elections. Interest groups don't do that. They try to influence the politicians they want to win. And one way they do that is electioneering. And electioneering is getting involved in campaigns. Okay. Interest groups influence elections a couple of ways. One easy way, if you are a large interest group with a lot of members, you have 1 million plus members, one easy way and free way to encourage your members to vote for candidate. You'll say to your members, vote for this Republican candidate in the upcoming election because this Republican candidate will protect your rights to own a gun. Okay, that would be something that the NRA would say. The NRA has millions of members, and they always endorse candidates who support gun rights. All right, and the NRA is great at this because they have the largest membership. They have more people in their interest group than any other interest group in the United States. That and the AARP. The AARP, the American Association for Retired People, they have a lot of people, obviously. A lot of old people. Okay. Campaign contributions. Another thing that interest groups try to do is help candidates win, and they want to help the candidates win that they know support their cause. So let's go back to NRA. If the NRA knows that candidate Bob is going to support gun rights when candidate Bob is in Congress, then the NRA is going to work really hard to make sure candidate Bob gets elected. Kind of like this cartoon here. It's a guy from the NRA. There's a candidate, congressional candidate, okay, and he's got a gun to his head, and you can see the gun says campaign money. So there's this idea that if you give a politician campaign money, you expect that politician, when he gets to be in office, to do what you want him to do. Okay, now, so interest groups give money to the candidate that supports their cause, with the expectation that the interest group will get the lawmaker to pass legislation that furthers the interest group's views. However, an interest group, if they want to give campaign contributions, they have to establish a PAC, or political action committee. And a political action committee is set up by the interest group to give money to a political candidate's campaign. So if the NRA wants to give money, they have to establish the NRA PAC, or the NRA Political Action Committee, and then they can give money through their Political Action Committee. Now, the reason why PACs were established is that the government passed a law saying that if we want to end corruption, or this idea that lobbyists or people who work for an interest group are buying politicians' votes, we need to kind of create this middleman, or a PAC, to be the buffer or the middleman between the interest group and the politician. So it's supposed to be less corrupt and more fair and transparent. Now, in recent decades, business PACs have increased more than any other type of PAC. So going back to like the types of interest groups, remember, businesses have a lot to lose with their profit, because they have to pay for a lot of government regulations like minimum wage or pollution controls. So they are under a lot of pressure to make sure that Congress members write laws that benefit them.